It's counted. Thank God. Lisa, you're good?
Yep.
Welcome to a lovely meeting on a lovely evening in the world's greatest city, Alameda, California, the Transportation Commission meeting for Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. We will begin with roll call.
Commissioner Dara Abrams.
Here.
Commissioner Kim.
Present.
Chair Whitesey.
Here.
Vice Chair Suthanthira.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
And Commissioners Gloin and Noctegal are absent tonight.
Seeing that we have a quorum, we will continue with the agenda. Let's move on to any proposed agenda changes. Any agenda changes, everyone? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item. We move on to staff communications with, I believe, Lisa Foster.
Good evening, Chair Whitesey and Transportation Commissioners. I'm Lisa Foster, Transportation Planning Manager and Secretary to you all. I will start with the City Council actions on items that you all have or will review that are recent. On March 17th, the City Council accepted the Transportation 2025 Annual Report and 2026 Work Plan. And on May 5th, they approved the bike share pilot concept and funding that you'll discuss tonight. Our next couple of regular meetings are July 22nd and September 23rd. And some potential agenda topics for those meetings include design concepts for Pacific Ave, Wilmachan Way, and nearby neighborhood greenway segments, a mid-year transportation report, and Clement Ave from Grand to Sherman. In terms of public events coming up, Caltrans is hosting another I-580 truck access study listening session in Oakland on May 23rd. And then on May 28th, the city is holding the Pacific Ave, Wilmachan Way, and Neighborhood Greenways workshop. I'll give a little more information on that in our updates. And then on June 5th and July 10th, at Mastic Senior Center, there will be Transportation 101 and Clipper Cards for Seniors events. For updates, we have been enjoying a lovely bike month. Around 700 people joined the bike festival at Ruby Bridges Elementary in the very beginning of the month. And it was a wonderful time. We combined it with the home electrification fair this time, which worked well. And then on May 14th was Bike to Wherever Day and Bike to School Day. The city hosted a Energizer station at City Hall. And then for Pacific Ave and Wilmachan, I've been mentioning a few times. We have funding to do improvements at that intersection, which is a neighborhood greenway crossing for Pacific Ave. And so we're working on alternatives for that, and then we're also working on a couple of segments of neighborhood greenways nearby. So we'll be having a public workshop and an online survey opening for the end of the month. Construction, big news for the Clement Ave Tilden Way improvement project. As I imagine everybody knows, on May 18th, stages 2 and 3 of that construction began, and this is the most intensive time of that construction. There is a detour at Fernside, which no longer connects to Tilden Way while the roundabout's being constructed. That should stay in place through about the fall, depending on weather and other things. The travel will continue on Tilden Way. In June, it'll be a temporary roadway north of the regular road so that can continue. Oakland Alameda Access Project, you all know the Webster Tube is being constructed during weeknights, and then Posey Tube will begin after Webster Tube is done. That's Caltrans project, as you know. Oakland Alameda Water Shuttle, this July marks the end of our initial 2-year pilot service, but we have funding for another 2 years with our partner funding agencies. And in April, the Water Shuttle carried almost 11,600 passengers. So that concludes my communications.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's move on next to non-agenda item public comment. So again, if there's a comment from the public on non-agenda items, do we have any non-agenda item public comment?
Yes, we have 2 in-house, and if you are on Zoom and would like to speak, please raise your hand. But first we have Danielle Mueller.
Hi, Danielle.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Danielle Mueller. I'm Sustainability and Resilience Manager for the City of Alameda. I'm here tonight to talk to you about a potential infrastructure bond on the ballot. So over the last year, we've been engaging with community regarding the city's significant infrastructure challenges. During 4 City Council workshops last fall, we identified more than $800 million in urgent needs. This includes our aging roads, bridges, storm drains, and public safety facilities, all of which are increasingly vulnerable to severe storms, sea level rise, and major earthquakes. So I'm here tonight to update you on this work and share how we are gathering community input on these critical issues and projects. To give a recent example, last year we experienced a major power outage, or a few years ago I think, a major power outage while the High Street Bridge was in the open position, and we had to wait hours for the simple issue to be resolved. To prevent this from happening again, we are exploring backup generators to ensure residents can get on and off the island 24/7, even during a blackout. And you likely remember some significant flooding this past January during king tides. This is a preview of how sea level rise will impact Alameda in the coming years if we don't take action now. At the same time, we must ensure city facilities remain operational after a major earthquake. When studied, our West End Fire Station received a C grade, the Alameda Point Fire Station and Training Facility received a D, and the Animal Shelter received an F. Alameda's pavement condition is scored currently as 66 out of 100. While it's slightly better than Oakland at 58, we are lagging far behind neighbors like Emeryville at 78 and Pleasanton at 76. Neglecting these needs increases costs for everyone. It shows up in our rising insurance rates, property values, slower emergency response times, and vehicle wear and tear. Without a dedicated funding source, the city is forced to use the general fund for urgent repairs. These repairs become more expensive every year they go unaddressed. One option under consideration is a $300 million local bond. This would create a protected, dedicated funding source specifically for our infrastructure needs. If approved, property owners would pay approximately $49 for every $100,000 of assessed value, not market value. For a home with assessed value of $500,000, for example, that equates to roughly $249 per year. This funding would allow us to prevent flooding in the Posey Webster tubes and on city streets, install earthquake-safe backup power so our bridges remain operational, repair potholes and improve traffic safety, maintain stormwater systems to prevent bay pollution and flooding, ensure our first responders can react quickly to fires and emergencies. All funds would stay here in Alameda. No funding could be taken by the state or federal government with an independent Citizens Oversight Commission. We recently mailed Alameda voters an information guide and survey. If you haven't yet, please visit www.alamedaca.gov/strongertogether to review the materials and complete the online survey. We want to hear from as many residents as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danielle. Next speaker, please.
Next, we have Jim Strelo.
Hi, Jim.
Good evening, folks. Cross Alameda Trail has been declared open, and yet I still see an obstruction between Grand and Hibbard. There's some sales office that has blocked off that roadway so that vehicles can't go between Grand and Hibbard. It says no trespassing. It says penal code section blah 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 blah. And somebody has erected that, blocking the roadway, since it's citizens' money that paid for the roadway. Why aren't the citizens able to use it? I use the bikeway, no problem, but friends of mine that, drive vehicles hear about the Cross Alameda Trail being open, go down there and see it's not open. They have to go around. So citizens like to know, why is that there and when is it going to be removed so that I can tell my folks, please use it. Another thing that I've noticed recently is along West Atlantic and Ardent, which is about 3 blocks west of Main Street, that because of the planters that are in the center, nice little pretty planters, that one day I saw a huge truck, not just the normal, 50-footer, whatever, the 18-wheeler things. It was a longer, vehicle going northbound on Ardent. And in order to make the turn onto West Atlantic, that it swerved all the way into the planters, off the road on Ardent, swinging as much as it could to try to make the turn onto West Atlantic. Couldn't make it. It decided that, oh, look, the opposite lane is open for me, and he went and drove against traffic. There wasn't anybody there at the time, and went against the traffic because that's the only way he could make the turn, in order to go on. And then once it got to the next stop sign intersection, he was able to chicane over and continue on West Atlantic. But those planters are apparently too confining to some very large vehicles. It's all because of the traffic circle work that's being done at Pacific Avenue in Maine, that these large vehicles have to go other directions. And I saw this and I said, well, it looks like there's some design problem here if they have to go off the road and still try to make the turn, and they have to bail out. It's a concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next comment, please.
If anyone online would like to make a non-agenda public comment, please raise your hand. And we have no speakers.
Seeing no additional comments, I do remind my fellow commissioners that there have been some letters submitted on non-agenda items. Feel free to review. Let's move next to the consent calendar, and I have a question about bureaucracy. So we have minutes approval, but we do not have enough people that were present for the previous meeting. Do they need to abstain if they were not at a previous meeting, or are they allowed to vote for minutes for meeting they were not at?
We generally abstain when people have missed the meeting, so we can put it on the next meeting.
Look at that. Bureaucracy working for us. Okay, I'm going to withdraw the motion to approve draft minutes. I'm going to move next to number 6, regular agenda items. Let's move to item 6A. This is to accept the West Alameda Transportation Demand Management Association annual report for 2025, and this is a voting item. Let's get a presentation. Go ahead, Rochelle.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, Chair Whitesey and Transportation Commissioners. I'm Rochelle Wheeler, Senior Transportation Coordinator with the City of Alameda, and I'm here to present this item to you to accept the West Alameda Transportation Demand Management Association Annual Report for 2025. It is an action item to review and accept this report. I just wanted to say that I'm also joined here by Brian McGuire, who is a planner in our planning department and also works a lot on transportation projects. And between the two of us, we're hoping we can answer any questions that come up. One person who could not be here tonight is Lucy Gisli, and she is the current executive director of the West Alameda Transportation Demand Management Association, and she was the one who prepared the annual report, and so we'll do our best to answer any questions you might have on that, but she had a conflict for tonight and regrets not being able to be here. I'll just start off by saying I will be referring to this organization or association by our acronym that we refer to it as, which is WATMA, so just up front. And WATMA is a Transportation Management Association. You can see that in its title. And so we thought that this would be a good opportunity to give you all background on what Transportation Management Associations, or TMAs, are and why we have them, and kind of where this WATMA came from and how it was established. So with that, I will start off. Again, WATMA is a TMA, and in general, these first few slides are just generic to TMAs. TMAs are nonprofits. They're member-controlled public-private partnerships. They are not entities of the city. The city does have representation on both of our TMAs in Alameda. Their general function is to implement a transportation demand management strategy that's outlined in a development agreement or some sort of previous agreement. Generally, they have a geographic focus for addressing traffic and commuting within a specific area or district or neighborhood. They bring together basically developers, real estate developers, local government, and businesses and residential HOAs together to form them, and then they have secure, regular funding. Primarily, they could be through developer fees, property assessments, or parking revenues. So generally, they work on implementing, like I said, transportation demand management, or TDM strategies. You can also think of these as trip reduction strategies. So TMAs might have a whole suite of different kinds of programs, and so some types of programs might be transit pass programs, where they give out transit discount passes to members, working on eliminating or filling that first and last mile gap to transit between these areas that are represented, such as running a local shuttle. Some of you may have heard of the Emory Go Round. That is operated by a TMA in Emeryville. And then they can also provide active transit support, such as transportation support, such as they can provide e-bike rebate programs, which the Alameda TMA does that now. They also can try to bring together people for carpooling, matching carpooling, or guaranteed ride home programs, and generally do marketing and education to try to shift commuters out of their driving alone habits into other ways of getting around. So why do cities use TMAs, and why do they exist? Fundamentally, they come from conditions of approval, so they're really serving as zoning enforcement mechanisms to reduce any new traffic that is or associated with large-scale private developments. So essentially, another way to say this is that as cities are approving this development and knowing that it's going to have an impact on increasing trips, they can require either participation in a TMA or creation of a TMA in order to mitigate those expected increased trips. Rather than having each individual HOA or each individual commercial development have their own program, having one TMA can really, have efficiencies, pool resources, so that these smaller entities can enjoy kind of the benefits that you can get from being a larger group, such as with transit benefit programs, which might be a lot for one small entity to operate and administer, or one small HOA. Ultimately, having the TMAs and reducing these trips reduces the city's need to just keep building more and more roads to accommodate all the traffic. And with that is trying to reduce the number of single occupant vehicles so that there's less traffic, especially during the peak hours. They can also help to meet our greenhouse gas emission local goals and our regional goals. So today, in Alameda, we have 2 TMAs. The color is a little hard to distinguish, at least as I'm viewing it, but the one in the middle, which looks a little purpley mauve colored, is the West Alameda TDMA, or WATMA. And you can see it's in the Alameda Landing area. And then there's 2 other entities, one out at Alameda Point and one along the northern waterfront. And both of those areas are part of the Alameda TMA. So these are the areas in the city that are covered by TMAs today. So WATMA was established to includes members for both residential and commercial. You can see on this map the areas that are included. There's 4 residential HOAs or communities, and there are 3 commercial areas that are included. And so that is the area that is included within WATMA. And the timeline for the establishment of WATMA is that way back in 2000, the city and Catellus, who is a developer, you might have heard of their name, entered into a development agreement to develop all of Alameda Landing, and they also developed the Bayport development, which is around Ruby Bridges School. And so that agreement was entered into with the city in 2000, and then as a part of a requirement of that development agreement in 2007, a TDM, or Transportation Demand Management, again, program was required, and that was approved by the city in 2007. And as I was referring to before about why we have these, for this particular project, an EIR analysis was done. It found that there were going to be significant traffic impacts from this Alameda Landing development. Not surprising, given that there wasn't a whole lot there before, that things were going to change. And so creating this TDM program is a part of those traffic impact mitigations that were required in the EIR. And that is then also a requirement then in the subsequent individual development agreements that occurred as these different developments happened, which happened over the course of about 16 years, from 2010 to 2026. This whole area was developed, and the commercial and the residential areas were built and then occupied. All of those properties, as they were sold, all of the transactions included documentation of this fee requirement for being a part of this TMA, and so that was in all of the disclosures and for all of these purchases that were made. In 2013, WATMA was established again as Alameda's first TMA. And so the entity was created, and the fees that are required with that started to get collected. That, again, is part of the development agreements. The intention with this, the development of WATMA, and this is in the TDM program, is that all additional development that happened afterwards in Alameda would actually become also part of this TMA, and that the city would have one TMA, and that it would just keep growing as development occurred. That is referenced in some of the documentation, and that was the intention. Also, as I've said, this approach to trip reduction requirements and fees, and how those were established and what those fees are, or really form the basis for subsequent development agreements that happened throughout Alameda, and sort of how those fees were established and how the trip reduction requirements were met. So it really was kind of our foundational TMA that was established. So this TDM program for Alameda Landing, the overarching goal is to implement on a permanently funded basis programs and measures that will reduce weekday peak hour single occupancy vehicle or SOV trips, weekday total trips and total emissions, and also to increase awareness and use of alternative modes of transportation. Today, WATMA has several programs as of right now. One is a AC Transit Easy Pass program, which is a free bus pass program for members. They are also a significant water shuttle funding partner. Bay 37, which is part of Alameda Landing, sits right in front of Bull Circle Park, which is where the water shuttle is. So this is definitely the development that is closest to the water shuttle. And then they also do some marketing of what the just different transportation options are and the incentives that are out there, and programs such as there's a countywide guaranteed ride home program run by Alameda CTC that's available for free to anybody who works in Alameda County. So as part of that TDM program, an annual report is required, and it's required there's a requirement for an annual survey, and the TDM program describes what needs to be in this annual report, and that annual report is supposed to come to the Transportation Commission and the City Council each year. I will step back and say this is only the second time we've brought this report to this commission. The last time is in 2022. I think several of you were on the commission. I don't know how much you remember that, but that was the last one. There have been ones done, I think, for like 7 or 8 years, but this is only the second time we've brought this to the Transportation Commission. And just highlights of what's in this 2025 annual report are program updates, including the Alameda Landing Express land shuttle that used to run between Alameda Landing and Oakland and downtown Oakland and BART. That was terminated last year, and as a replacement, the AC Transit Easy Pass program was established in May of last year, so it's just a year old at this point for this community. And there's an update on the water shuttle contributions. You can also see the results of the survey, the current WATMA membership, and the approved budget and goals for 2026. It also includes an update on the status of the merger of WATMA and the Alameda TMA. So I wanted to use this opportunity just to provide the background on that merger history and the status, because it's kind of got a long history here. And as described in the staff report, as I've said today, that TDM program really did envision that WATMA would be created so that it could expand to include future development. In 2016, as the Alameda Point development was coming online, the city initiated discussions with the developer at that time, Catellus, to add Alameda Point to WATMA. Those were not successful in a timely way, and so in 2017, the Alameda TMA was created, so our second TMA. In 2019, the WATMA board voted unanimously to support merging with the Alameda TMA, as many things kind of did during the pandemic. That went kind of dark for a few years. And then in 2022, and this is the last time the report, and the first and the last time that an annual report came to the Transportation Commission and then the council, there was the recommendation that the Transportation Commission and the council made to merge these two TMAs. There was work that proceeded on that over the past few years. Consolidation documents were prepared, lawyers were paid, and some of those documents were signed. And then, as is referred to, as is described in the annual report, in 2025, the WATMA Board of Directors, the composition was updated and changed to actually remove the developer who the developer was done developing, and so that entity was a director on the WATMA board, and that was removed, and a new board was constituted, and that board had some concerns about the merger, and so that did not get executed, the final merger documents. Where the city staff is now is we continue to believe that that merger should happen, and will be encouraging that process to move forward. So with that, I and Brian are happy to answer any questions, and we're available for questions or comments.
Thank you, Rochelle. Any clarifying questions first from the commissioners? Please, clarifying questions.
Thank you, Rochelle. Are there any numbers that you can, I see that there is a table of, how many members, how many commercial members, how many residential members, and how many actually use the AC Pass and things like that. That's the real utilization of the TMA program.
I would say what you see in the annual report is what we have available as of right now about how the programs are being used, and that's based on the survey results, and obviously with the Easy Pass through AC Transit, you are able to get data based on the Easy Passes that you distribute to your community. So that's what those tables in the annual report are generated from, is from data that comes from AC Transit. Does that answer the question?
There are so many members are there, right? 800 members or something total, mm-hmm. But how many actually used it? So that's what. How
many used the Easy Pass? So I think it's about a third.
Yeah, it says here 33% of pass holders use their pass at least once a month.
Right, and so not all. All residential members are eligible for a pass. Only 2 commercial developments are eligible for Michaels and Safeway. Only the employees from those locations are eligible for the pass. So of the 646 units, they've distributed, this was as of last October, 215 passes were distributed. I don't have that data for today. I know that there was another push done, because this is a new program, it's only a year old, and it does in here reference that in February there was another push to get more people to sign up, and that did see a bump in the number of people signed up. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional clarifying questions from commissioners? Commissioner Kim.
Yeah, just one quick one. Does the Alameda TMA have a similar annual report that comes out? And has that ever come to this committee? Okay.
I'm going to let Brian answer that. I will say that I, as of February, am on the WATMA Board of Directors as the city representative, and Brian is one of the directors on the Alameda TMA board, along with our interim director, Abby Thorne-Lyman.
Thank you, Brian McGuire, Planner 3 with Planning, Building, Transportation Department. The ATMA, Alameda TMA, has submitted, I think there was a consolidated report starting, maybe it was almost 3 years ago, when it was sort of a transition phase with the ATMA. Sort of a lot of the projects were coming online, and the budget and the number of members sort of reached a critical mass, and that organization staffed up a little. And during that time, the West Alameda TMA that we're talking about tonight actually had Alameda TMA staff. They basically contracted with the Alameda TMA to administer the West Alameda TMA. Previously, it had been done by the developer, Catellis, for the first 10 years or so of that development, but then as sort of part of the getting to know you phase in anticipation of a potential consolidation or merger, ATMA took over management for a couple of years, and the staff at the time of Alameda TMA put out, I believe it was the 2023 annual report that came out in around March of 2024, and that report, I don't believe, was brought to this body. I think they have to report to the city in the way the Alameda TMA requirements are set up, but I don't know if it specifically says that it has to come to this body. But I think we're in this process of sort of engaging at a different level with these TMAs over the last couple of years, and sort of they've matured and are starting to do a little bit better job of tracking that information, and hopefully we'll be bringing these on a more regular basis going forward.
Thank you.
Any additional clarifying questions from commissioners? Seeing none, we will go to public comment on this agenda item.
So far, we have one speaker in-house, Jim Strelo.
Good evening. Average Joe citizen here, not understanding a lot of all of this alphabet soup stuff. How successful is trip reduction west of Webster? Is how most citizens look at, projects such as this. And I'm not getting a lot of numbers that make a lot of sense. The numbers are important. How many businesses are west of Webster? How many employees are out there? You said that a third of the express passes are used a month, but how many is that? That how successful is the information getting out to the businesses that are out there? As I luckily live on the east end of Alameda and ride my bike to the west end of Alameda maybe a couple of times a week. And all I see is lots of traffic in the morning and the evening, Buena Vista Avenue, Ralph Alpizzato, Central Avenue, West Oriskany. It's just, the average Joe citizen wants to know what is being done to get the word out, to get more people involved in it. That I hear numbers, but I don't, and not enough numbers. But what's the effort to get out there and get more people to participate? I like to see my money spent. I like the citizens like to see effective programs. So how much money is charged to businesses? What are the annual expenses? How much is in the TMA fund? These things the average citizen at least is casually interested in. I didn't kind of see those numbers. So, for a good report, I'd like to see more information. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any additional comments?
Yes, we have one now on Zoom, Mitch Ball.
Hi, Mitch.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. Hi, well, I work right in between the Webster and Posey tube, which is where I'm working late right now. And it's not technically Alameda Landing, but it is certainly close enough that myself and my coworkers have benefited from the Alameda Landing TDM programs. Back when we had the Alameda Landing Express, it was how I used to arrive from Berkeley, and it was so popular amongst my coworkers that the bus driver would often kindly take an unofficial stop on the east side of Target so we could have a shorter walk to work. Since then, many have transitioned to other options. Cyclists often use the water taxi and occasionally the Bay Ferry, whilst those on foot often use AC Transit as well as the Research Park shuttle. My workplace is not technically part of the Research Park, but no one asks for employee IDs on the shuttle, so people do what's convenient for them. I've talked with HR about signing us up for the Bay Pass so we could get free bus service back, plus more of it, but they haven't agreed to pay for this benefit yet. I noticed that the EasyPass use has not been as significant as we had hoped, which I suspect might be due to EasyPass only serving AC Transit. Many people have further destinations that require multiple agencies if choosing to rely on transit, so I imagine that with the combination of our two TMAs, we could change those EasyPasses to Bay Passes, which serve all transit agencies, which could encourage much more transit use. On recommendation 3.2, I can say that a seaplane to landing bus shuttle would be enormously popular amongst my coworkers. Some already cycle from the seaplane terminal, but I've heard many without bikes talk about how they'd love to use it, but don't know what to do about the last mile. My previous supervisor said that he looked around the point for a place that he could park his car indefinitely near the seaplane terminal because he has no use for his car in San Francisco except to drive over the Bay Bridge every weekday for work. I know that this has been framed as a program for residents, but I can tell you that many reverse commuters would also love to use this service as well. On recommendation 3.3, I think unfortunately I have to disagree with the premise that there is an easy and direct bike path route from Seaplane Terminal to Alameda Landing. I recently volunteered with Bike Walk Alameda to help update Alameda's famous bike map, which meant charting out Alameda street by street on bike. I was responsible for West Alameda, so I can confidently say that going west of Alameda Landing is Alameda's 4th largest bike infrastructure gap. If you look at Alameda's active transportation plan, you might propose a cyclist use Singleton Avenue's bike lane, but this bike lane simply doesn't exist for most of Singleton Avenue. While it is still my preferred route to bike to Almanac to meet my coworkers for the occasional happy hour, it does not have continuous bike infrastructure. Another option includes 5th Street, which includes a bike lane, but it is one of our city's most dangerous as it directs right-turning cars to drive through the bike lane to enter the right turn lane. And lastly, there is Coral Sea Street, which does not officially include bike infrastructure, but is a very low stress and direct street. Unfortunately, getting to the street includes a short but very hectic journey through Willie Stargirl Avenue. So this is all to say that when Willie Stargirl bike lane does get built, this gap will be eliminated. So the city should definitely stay on schedule and strongly commit to this project.
Thank you for your comment.
Once that project,
Thank you for your comment. Any additional public comments?
Yes, next we have, one moment, Arsh Hoti.
Hi, Shelby.
Hello, hope everybody can hear me.
We can.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Honorable Commission. My name is Arsh Singh Hothi. I am the General Manager of the Alameda Transportation Management Association, the topic of conversation tonight. Just wanted to offer this council an introduction and maybe some answers to some questions. So I joined recently in November of 2025, and I joined from San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, where I was the data lead for transit operations performance. As I've joined, my main priority has been sort of getting everything in order and setting up great IT infrastructure and data collection infrastructure so that I can put together a well-encompassing report for the end of 2026. And I'm glad that it was brought up today because I have been now trying to go back and see what I can find for 2025. Now, that is a bit difficult, but I will try to put together whatever I can, and I would like to offer a presentation to this body of that report if the commission deem that would be helpful. As as far as some rapid fire answers to some questions that were brought up in other public comment, I can say that our pool governing body or our membership body is nearing the 3,000 mark. And most of those folks are either in the northern waterfront or the Alameda Point. And that is a mix of residents and employers that are moved in. And yeah, we're hoping to get that number up and up every year. And we have seen a steady increase in that pool number. And yeah, if there are any other questions, I will be happy to answer. Feel free to reach out to me, gm@alamedatma.org. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional comments?
There are no other speakers on Zoom and no speakers in-house.
Okay, seeing no additional public comments, let's move on to commission discussion and questions. Who of my fellow commissioners has some comments or questions? Drew Dare Abrams, take it away.
Okay, Chair. I guess since I'm going first, I'll be the one to say TDM as an acronym sounds a lot like Jimmy Carter sitting in a sweater saying, turn down the thermostat, put on a sweater. But behind the acronym is actually, and I think I liked Rochelle had a good line I might borrow there too, like the cost of removing one solo occupancy vehicle from the tube at peak hours, that is worth a lot of money there, because at that certain time of day, you can imagine there's a Caltrans staffer saying, if only we could add another tube here. And so in contrast, sorry, you asked me to go first, so I get to do it. So in contrast, the cost to get one person to ride AC Transit for one time at 8:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning when they have their return to work email, like that's valuable. Making that the actual delivery, the marketing, the convincing people to do this, doing it at scale, like that takes real effort. But I just wanted to momentarily speak to to the value of this, because we have the number of tubes we have, but this type of incentivizing and making these services accessible is really valuable. I did want to flag Clipper Bay Pass, and I was a little curious to hear, because I think, is it right that the Alameda TMA has rolled that out?
Yes, I think we're, I can't remember if we're in year 2 or year 3 of the Clipper Bay Pass for Alameda TMA right now. And so Alameda TMA was one of the initial participants in the Clipper Bay Pass pilot. And that's been super popular, obviously, going from just AC Transit to available on something like 25 agencies, basically everything in the Bay Area short of a cable car, Caltrain, BART, et cetera. So that has really grown the sort of demand and the effectiveness of those programs. Obviously, it increases the cost of that program and what that looks like going forward, and what's affordable for these TMAs is an ongoing budget discussion for all of these organizations in terms of, how much do we spend on this pass versus how effective are we doing with the water shuttle, which has been very successful, and putting together the best package we can and encouraging other agencies to give us the best deal we can on these passes so that we don't have to make as many of those hard choices. But yeah, they've been running for a little over 2 years, I think, at this point, and very successful.
Can I actually ask a follow-up question to that? Because I think it's good for the public to understand how that money gets spent on it. Is it on a per ride basis? Is it on a blanket use basis? Just for people to understand. Yeah, so the AC Transit Easy Passes, AC Transit has their own method for those contracts, and that was what both TMAs were, what Alameda TMA has been operating on for a long time, and WATMA has transitioned to last year. They have a certain pricing model based on what the level of bus service in that neighborhood might be versus what the potential ridership, and they sort of price, have some value built in. The broader Bay Pass pilot being run by MTC, technically
what they do is they project, the goal of that program is to recover the full fair value of the trips taken, but they sort of have to speculate because they quote the Alameda TMA price. They say for your mix of 300 residential units and 500 employees at Alameda Point, and the Northern Waterfront, we're going to charge you first year $197 total for the Bay Pass, which includes AC Transit. And then it was really popular and really successful. And the next year they said, whoa, we need to charge you $400 a year. And then we were like, hey, can we talk about this? And they were able to institute some of the early other programs they were working on, like their free transfers pilot, early for the TMA in order to meet us in the middle and keep that program sustained. So that's where a big part of the discussion is in terms of what the other transit agencies are willing to accept to get these presumably more customers than they otherwise would have. And so there has to be value for both the agencies and for the users in order to participate in that program long term, I think.
That's super helpful, Brian. Thank you. Any additional questions or comments?
I do, but if others want to piggyback on the Bay Pass
we'll move around. Any other comments piggybacking off his comments? Mr. Kim.
Sure. I guess kind of along those lines, because so it sounds like, WADMA, is that okay. It just has the AC Transit program, the other one's on the Bay Pass program. Are we seeing varying or significantly different uses in transit use from the two TMAs?
Good question. I'll start off just with a little more background. So I am, in my relatively new tenure on this board, I will say that the WATMA is in a period of transition right now with a newly constituted board as of last year. Last year is when the Alameda Landing, the land shuttle ended, the Easy Pass program was started. And there is a sense among some of the, a lot of the board members that this is not a very robust program. It's not really meeting the needs of the residents. They would love to have the Bay Pass program, as you've just heard. It's very expensive. And so one of the goals that you maybe saw in the annual report is to look at expanding transit options, and whether that's a transit pass option, some different kind of a transit pass, something beyond just the Easy Pass, or building on the Easy Pass. I think there's generally a feeling that the Bay Pass for this population is probably going to be more than this, the revenues that this TMA collects could afford. There's interest in something called a mobility wallet, which is just like a cash program where you get money that can be spent specifically on specific transit entities, and you maybe just get, a certain amount per month. So that is one of the goals for this year, is to be working to explore those different options. There's some money set aside in the budget, which you might have seen in the budget, for a future new transit program, again, to try to address like this feeling that maybe the Easy Pass program is not really meeting the needs of this community. From the city perspective, it's also quite a new program, and perhaps it's just like needs more time for uptake as well. But certainly doesn't have to be the only program available. I don't know that we've done anything to compare transit usage in these two TMAs, but perhaps Brian has something to add.
Yeah, I think I would just add to your question, Commissioner. The Easy Pass program for WATMA is brand new, right? For 10 years, the only thing the West Alameda TMA was doing was paying for a peak hour, commute hour ground shuttle from Target to downtown Oakland. And so the Alameda TMA's Easy Pass program had been in place for 6 or 7 years before the Clipper Bay Pass program was implemented a couple years ago. So that market penetration, the relationships had built up. So it's hard to do an apples to apples comparison to the limited data we have on monthly boardings that's in the report. And I think there's some detail, a little bit more detail on the October maybe daily ridership in there. So we haven't really done that comparison because it would be really hard to do, especially when it's just ramping up. Those residents are just getting the word out. We've had a transition in staff at the TMAs that impacts the ability to communicate with those member organizations. And it's not just like kind of constructing a new road. It takes time to build up the sort of culture and the penetration, the communication within these communities to get them on board and using these passes a little more frequently. But easy to predict if they had the Bay Pass. A lot of these folks in Alameda Landing are coming or using the shuttle, or as the commenter said, maybe reverse commuting, using the ferry and the shuttle, but using the ferry to get to San Francisco. And obviously that's a big hit for Alameda residents when they upgrade to the Bay Pass. So it would be easy to make that prediction of how popular it would be if they were able to do it.
Thank you.
Any additional Commissioner comments? Commissioner Suthan-Theory, you've been quiet. Please take it away.
I'm, having done this in the past, I know how difficult the numbers are and how focused it can get. And the usage will look very little. I mean, just like how Commissioner Tara Abrams mentioned, it's like you have one person and so much, how much money you spend on. But at the end of the day, still people want to see the numbers, right? So perhaps moving forward in the future presentations for both the TMAs, because I hear that Alameda TMA report is coming up too. It'll be good to present it in the context, the number of EC Pass users. And I know it has the percentage and then how it increased and all that is there. So a little more succinctly and also how much money is used. So a little more number breakdown in terms of the outcome will be helpful in the presentation itself. So.
If I could just add on to that and your earlier question too, yeah, we certainly could. And I think that if Lucy, usually the executive director, had been here, she would have done more of a deep dive on the annual report itself as well. But for the Easy Pass, it does say in the report that of those 215 passes that have been distributed, about 33% of those holders are using their pass at least once per month. And then also from the annual survey results, there were questions about the water shuttle usage. And of the respondents, 33% of residents responded that they use the water shuttle as part of their commute. So 33% is quite high. And then also 82% of those respondents use the water shuttle recreationally on the weekends. And only 10% say they never use the water shuttle. So that's just numbers.
Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, no, this is good information. I'm hearing it from you for others as well. So, and when we go through the 18-page staff report, sometimes we miss the numbers. So the highlight helps. So.
Commissioner Johnson, how about you? Good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Let's go back over here. Commissioner Dara Abrams.
Well, I'll just echo what Rochelle just brought up with this. Water shuttle usage numbers are great. And on the one hand, so I think we all should thank this TMA and the residents for participating in the funding of that program. I've enjoyed riding it myself, and I'm glad all those members have come together to work together and fund it. But one other point of comparison I wanted to offer was when the city switched from running its own contracting out its own paratransit system to buying AC transit passes for seniors. I think that may have taken a little bit of transition, but it's resulted in, my understanding, is a much more efficient use of funds. And so it seems like this TMA is maybe at the start of that journey as well, but just the cost of, even if they're not yet able to provide the Bay Pass, providing the AC Easy Pass is probably a much more effective use of funding than operating that shuttle. So in the steps of this journey, it's great to see different bodies kind of paying AC for the corridors served by AC, working together to fund the water shuttle for a corridor that did not exist. So I just want to share those thoughts. And then finally, I'm going to say, my understanding is we're here to just consider this from a programmatic perspective. I did read the appendix on the merger of the two entities. I would imagine that's for those two boards to to agree on, but it's good to see the city helping to encourage this, because just towards the programmatic goals, if these can be one entity or they can leverage each other's resources more efficiently, it looks like both the members and the city as a whole will benefit. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Well said. Commissioner Sutan-Thera.
Just a quick question. So you mentioned, probably it's Rochelle, you mentioned in your presentation 2 business members are the big businesses in the landing areas. Safeway and Michaels are the members. But what about Target? I mean, there are so many other small businesses, but the big one.
Yeah, this is something I'm definitely getting up to speed on now.
Okay.
I had not realized that it's the transit pass benefit that was only offered to those 2 commercial properties and their employees. And the reason that I understand, and it's in the annual report, is that it can be very administratively time-consuming and just challenging to work with lots of small employers and also employers that have a whole lot of turnover. So what has historically been found in the work that has been done for this TMA is that those were the most responsive employers and easiest to work with. Unfortunately, I've then heard that Michaels is closing. I don't know if that's already been done or is public. So then you're just down to Safeway that has access to this. What I also understand is that Target is, as a national company, does not want to encourage or promote this benefit because they have a policy of looking at, what I've been told is that their policy is that they have to offer the same benefits across the whole country. And so if they're offering it, even just promoting it, I guess, here in Alameda, then someone in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they have to offer a transit benefit program too as well. So I would hope that maybe with some more resources we can find if there's ways to get around that issue and still serve those employees. But Target is certainly paying into the program, whether or not their employees are, getting these passes. So.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kim.
One more comment, and I don't need a response to this one. Just kind of noting, I think I understand why the data is like this, but some of the data statistics are a little confusing. Like, for example, it says 55% frequently drive alone. Next line says ferry remains steady at 47 to 49%. That's 100 whatever percent already. Then line after that, AC transit increased significantly to 39%. So it's probably the way you define frequent or different things, but when future iterations of this report, having maybe some of those numbers a little more clear would be useful to give a better sense of actual usage, right? Or just more clearly define some of those things.
I have only a few comments. First, there was a comment from the public about trying to better understand the budget for this program. There's actually a reasonably good breakdown of the budget on page 6 of the resources provided for this meeting, so definitely would recommend looking at those. Nice chart about 2025 and 2026 projected budget, if you are interested. I wanted to understand a little bit about the power of the WATMA board, which I think is in the scope of this meeting. So these groups all contribute money, but do the boards essentially have veto power over how it's spent? It sounds like there was a merger on, and then the merger's probably not on, presumably because the current board decided they were against this. I wanted to understand, does any project that that money is spent on, any sort of transit thing, does that have to go through whatever board currently exists? Essentially, then there is veto power if you have enough members on the board, or is this something that the city itself manages what is most spent on, and there's recommendations? They just help us understand, if you would.
Yeah, so sure. So WATMA is a nonprofit, so it has a governing board, and it hires a general manager to implement things and write this report, do this survey, administer the Transit Pass program, and all of that. But the board, of which there are currently 5 directors, and I am one of those, they make decisions on the budget, what programs to fund. The board currently has 5 members. It has 2 directors that are supposed to represent the HOAs, and 2 directors and the residential community, and 2 directors that represent the commercial side. And then it has 1 that's appointed by the city. So those are the 5 board members.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I just wanted, it's barely in scope, but there was a public comment on it in this, and I just wanted to highlight something that I 100% agreed with, a public comment. They were talking about the bike lane infrastructure on 5th, where it meets Appisato, which is the most crazily designed bike lane I have ever seen in my life. And if anyone in this room has not looked at it, please take your car, not your bike, and go see it. It would be great if the city would look at fixing this, because I have never seen something that sets that much potential danger up for bike riders in that lane. So let's look at it if we could. With that, what more questions do we have?
I had a question.
See what I did there? Go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Rochelle, follow-up question. So are you saying to the Target, are you saying that their employees are eligible, but they can't, I'm trying to follow what you were saying, because of they would have to sort of market it to employees throughout the United States. They can't really tell the employees about the passes?
Yeah, it's a little murky to me too, so sorry I wasn't clear, but as I understand it, they're not willing to promote the program. They're not willing to say, have their employees like, here's how you sign up for this transit pass, and there's this option, there's this opportunity you have, and contact the WATMA TMA to sign up to get one of these passes. Could a WATMA board member stand out front and look at people who have name tags on them and say, you're eligible for this benefit? I mean, they might get kicked off the property, I don't know. But that's what I think the understanding is, that Target, typically when you offer these kinds of benefits, you want to work with a cooperative employer so that you have a way to feed information down to employees and distribute that information. And I get Target is just not willing to do that.
Okay, and you were kind of going, because I think about you go everywhere and everyone's trying to get you to sign some. So I'm trying to figure out, like, if they're eligible, and I go to Target, there's a lot of people that could probably benefit. Like, could someone, a volunteer organization or someone, like, sort of tell the Target employees about this program? Because I don't think that's fair.
Well,
they don't...
I think it's a good thing that, it's something that I'm interested in looking at more, because if we're going to try to reduce trips and we have a program that most of the commercial employees are not even eligible for, then how do we reduce those, trips that are generated by the employees that work at those commercial properties? Right now, currently, the structure of the Easy Pass program is that those Target employees are not in that program right now. So even if they were wanting to not deal with their employer and come in, only Safeway and Michael's employees are actually currently eligible, because when you work on setting up the contract with AC Transit, you have to say, this is the pool of people that are eligible, and this is the total number. So WATMA had to make a decision of who is going to be in that pool, and at that point it was only those 2 commercial property owners, Safeway and Michael's, that were easier to work with, and so they were included.
Okay.
But going, in future iterations, maybe that could be changed.
Yeah.
Certainly something I'm interested in looking into.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a
if I can just add to that. One can hope some of them are taking the water shuttle. And then also, it does seems like you need some participation from the company, because you need to confirm that they're employees and that their employment has continued. I don't see how you could do it without their participation.
That's right, and you need to know when they leave, because then the benefit ends, right? And if there's a lot of turnover, that can be a cumbersome administrative process.
Maybe seeing a lot of fake Target T-shirts. Commissioner Kim.
Yeah, well, a side note and comment, I have worked with a corporation before that had similar policy, basically because whatever they do with one store, they have to do nationally, right? And that's the trick, where they found it infeasible to offer transit passes nationally, so they've been then restricted to every store, right? Which seems kind of backwards, but that's just kind of how they did it. But I have another question where there's a lot of small stores in there. Has there been any work done in trying to offer them transit passes, things like that? Does it not make sense because they're, I don't know if they're franchised or individually owned or whatever, but I'm curious about that.
Yeah, and again, I'm coming in new to this, but my understanding and what I've heard and read is that the previous general managers and they did try to do a lot of outreach to employers and walk into businesses and talk to people, and found that for those really small businesses, that are maybe 2 or 3 people, and it's like the owner is like working the front counter and in the back, like it just was something that they just felt like they just could not take on, and so it was hard to get them to engage.
Any additional comments? Commissioner Susan Thera.
Sorry, just following up on that. I think it's, given the number of small businesses out there, I think it's worth exploring given the changing scenario in terms of, economy and then the cost of living going so high. And I think it'll be attractive for the employees over there. I understand maybe you could, the TMA could explore reducing the administrative burden. What is the real block, right, or roadblock over there, So make it simple for the recipient on that side, make it easier for them. So that should be our goal, right? So to be able to reach more people. And especially if they are paying into it, might as well, make it really convenient for them to be able to use it. So something worthwhile to explore.
Are the AC Transit passes that come with this program issued on a monthly basis or a yearly basis? When does this actually go out to employees? And the reason I ask that question is to support Commissioner Susan Thera's point is if the small businesses feel that they have too much employee turnover and the other groups feel that way as well, but if that pass expires every month, that problem kind of takes care of itself because you can only issue it to those employees that are employed the next month.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it gets to the administrative burden of managing any entity, any employer especially. So the way I understand the AC Transit Easy Pass setup is you define the eligible pool. So, Safeway has 120 employees, and so the pool, the TMA is going to purchase 120 passes for the year that are eligible from that employer, and then each of those employees gets a Clipper card if they sign up for the program, and the TMA manages and AC Transit manage that list of Clipper card numbers associated with the user. And so theoretically on a monthly or at least a quarterly basis, the sort of TMA liaisons in each business need to validate, is this list still right, so that the new employees can get it. So they can come in and drop off, but you have to manage that list. And so if it's a very small entity and not a lot of institutional support, or in case of Target, the ability to validate the accuracy of that list would have a big impact on whether you can offer the new current employees and whether you have your eligibility pool right, or you're still paying for passes for people who have moved to Topeka by now, right?
Any additional comments? With that, I'm going to make a motion to accept the West Alameda Transportation Demand Management Association Annual Report for 2025. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Chair, I apologize. Vice Chair Susan Thera. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries unanimously. Let's move on to item 6B, review and discuss program concepts for a 3-year bike share pilot in West Alameda, and this is a discussion item, not a votable item. We will be getting a presentation. Go ahead. Hi, Susie.
Good evening, Chair Whitesey and Commissioners. My name is Susie Hufstadter, Senior Transportation Coordinator, presenting on the Bike Share Pilot Program. I need to kind of preface this by explaining that this item actually already went to City Council. We're doing things out of order here. In the time since the last commission meeting, there was a lot of activity with the development of the Oakland Alameda Access Project Transportation Management Plan. The opportunity to pilot bike share came up in that work, and we needed to have an endorsement from City Council to kind of keep moving forward with that funding agreement. So that meeting actually went really, really long because of a previous item, and so we only had 3 minutes to discuss this at council. So this is really like the opportunity to have an actual public meeting and discussion about this. So
you have 4 minutes. Go ahead.
With that, so today we'll just be reviewing the bike share pilot program concept and hearing your feedback and feedback from the public. We in particular are hoping to have a good discussion on the community engagement plan, since that's our next step, and there's a lot to discuss there. So as I mentioned just in my preamble, the Oakland Alameda Access Project is really the primary context for this. We've heard all of this before. It's going to have an extended Posey tube closure starting in early 2027. Or early spring is what we've been hearing. So the water shuttle already has some additional funding through this transportation management plan, and the bike share program was kind of the next step in that discussion. So yeah, this map kind of illustrates the first and last mile connection issue. The Posey and Webster tubes are obviously the primary land crossing, and then we have our 3 water crossings of the 2 ferry terminals and the water shuttle. And as we've discussed before and heard from the public commenters on the last item, the first and last mile can be a barrier for folks to actually get to their homes and jobs and destinations after taking a boat. So the bike share program is an effort to offer one option for closing that gap. The pilot is planned to use the Bay Wheels system, which is the regional bike share system. The funding from Alameda CTC and the local match would be really focused on investing in that infrastructure and planning for that Bay Wheels system. This pilot would include the e-bikes only. We've heard from Lyft, who is the operator, and MTC, who is Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which manages the contract regionally, that the new e-bikes are extremely popular and they just think it's a better investment. I will add that the bikes can operate as a slower e-bike for the same price as a standard bike, so that can kind of assuage any concerns people might have about the higher pricing for the e-bike. And the program would include 8 pilot stations, primarily focused on the West End business areas and some residential centers as well. We do plan to start evaluating a potential expansion pretty soon after launch. I think we want to start thinking about the future of the program as we're in the pilot period, but the initial pilot would be 3 years for that construction period. So yeah, for those who aren't familiar, Bay Wheels is a regional system. I've cropped out San Jose, but they also participate. It's fully interoperable, so in theory, somebody could bike from Alameda into Oakland. Since it is a West End program and the tubes are so challenging, you know, it would be a pretty long ride to go to Fruitvale from the West End, but you could do it, and you could bring it on the water shuttle, but you're paying per minute. So, you know, it's probably not super likely that a lot of people would be doing that, but it does have implications for the future expansion into the rest of Alameda, because then it brings you a lot closer to those bridge crossings. And it's critical because people only have to really think about one app or one system. So if you already have Bay Wheels, because you commute in San Francisco or in Oakland or Berkeley, you can just pick up a bike on one end and then pick up a new one on the other end, and it's just the same system. Yeah, I think most people have probably seen the docking stations in other cities, but they are only for parking in the docks for this expansion. We don't have a dockless program planned at this time. We've observed in other cities and heard from other communities that, and also here with our original bike share program, that dockless can be a little bit challenging, and the opportunity to join the docked regional system was something we valued for the kind of organization and predictability. This is an example of how the docking stations can look in a more neighborhood context in Berkeley, and then on the right in a more plaza transit center context in Oakland. We don't need to go through the entire table, but just want to kind of give the sense that the pricing is variable depending on what type of pass a user purchases. I live in Oakland. I have Lyft on my phone for when I need to get home from council at 12:30 a.m., and I also sometimes use it to pick up a single bike, but I don't have a membership. So that's fine. It's a little expensive. And then other people who are using it daily for their commutes will find that it's cost effective to have an annual membership. And then the Bike Share for All program is the low income program. There's a few different ways to qualify, including having SNAP benefits already. And that has a really, really positive, really, really strong discount. So that's a very good program, and we'll be working hard after launch and before launch to make sure that our community is aware of this through partnerships with the affordable housing entities and social service agencies, food bank, and so on. So yeah, for folks who haven't used this before, just kind of a look. These are screenshots from my phone. As I mentioned, I use it through the Lyft app, but there's also a dedicated Bay Wheels app. You can see how many bikes are already there available to use, as well as how many open docks are available to drop off a bike. Hot tip, it's good to check before you go that there's open docks. They do a good job of rebalancing, and the contract has expectations and performance metrics set for moving the bikes back and forth to make sure that there is space. But sometimes during rush hour, there can be some times when they do fill up, so that's how you check. And then there's also kiosks, and if you have a membership, you can use Clipper. So we're going to be, as a next step, working on a community outreach program to identify the locations for these stations. The blobs or bubbles around potential station locations are shown in this map. This is actually 10, and we have funding for 8. So that's a good note that we really need to try to prioritize where those will be best used and most useful to people. It's a really high priority to serve Alameda Point businesses, business parks, where there's a lot of offices, and of course the Webster Street business district. So the 3 water transportation options must have docking stations, and the rest are up for discussion in terms of where is the highest priority for people. So yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to be launching community outreach with some online surveys, and there's going to be some pretty close coordination with the Alameda TMA. You heard from Arsh on the phone just now. He's going to be involved, as well as our team from Base Reuse and Economic Development, helping coordinate with businesses out at Alameda Point. We just want to make sure that we're locating them fairly so that it's serving as many businesses as possible and working well with where there's existing parking and bike racks, and it can be a bit of a dance to get it in the right spot. So we're going to be working hard on that. And the community engagement will also be just publicity to make sure people know about it, and the low-income Bike Share for All program, as well as education. Bike East Bay, which has funding through Alameda CTC, who are also funding this program, they do like rides and workshops with Bike Share, so that will be an option as well. There's a technical aspect of the work plan for the next 6 months leading into the launch. We have funding as part of our budget to have a consultant come on board to help us with the siting. The community outreach is one part of it, but there's also a lot of technical aspects of station siting. There need to be adequate clearances from parked vehicles, crosswalks, ADA widths on sidewalks. If there's slopes on the street where they might go in a parking lane, there's a lot of technical detail there. So we'll be having a consultant help us with some of that siting and design. this is a table that summarizes some of our research that we did leading up to the recommendation to City Council on the Bay Wheels program. There are other bike share programs, and Bay Wheels is kind of an excellent choice for us because of the regional connectivity, but we did do some pretty extensive research on the alternatives. So dockless mobility program, and then I'm gonna have to get some water.
Get some water.
Sorry,
Take your time.
I seem to be fighting something today. I apologize.
So maybe it was a blessing they only let you speak for 3 minutes at the other meeting.
Yeah, I know. No, it's good. It's meaty stuff. So yeah, basically a city-led procurement would not be connective with Oakland. They have Bay Wheels. Bay Wheels would not participate in a city-led procurement, and so that would just lead us down a path of having an island-only bike share system. And then a dockless micromobility permit program is something that we do want to think about in the future, but that's essentially a dockless scooter program, and it's quite different from bike share. So we don't see it exactly as like the same thing. It's more of a potential future expansion of the programs that we need to do quite a bit more research and outreach on before launching that. So that's that. And then the funding approval is next week at Alameda CTC, and then we'll go into the work plan from there, which I already described. So I'm going to stop talking and take another drink of water while folks think about their question.
Way to power through.
Thank you so much.
Does anyone have any very slowly asked clarifying questions? I have a couple, Susie, but I can wait for a second, so take your time. One is just a logistics question. You mentioned there are limitations on where these can be installed. Are these grid connected or are these battery powered? These are batteried.
The kiosks are actually solar powered. There is not a high power need for them. It's a pretty it's a pretty simple system, and they have a solar panel on the top of each kiosk. There have been questions in the past about having charging integrated into the stations, which is technically possible, but my understanding is that other cities in the region have had no uptake on connecting these to the grid because it's so complicated to do.
Got it. And then, sorry, a couple more questions.
Just to clarify my understanding, if I'm right, is the lift removes the batteries and charges them off-site.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Could we go back to the map of potential sites? I just want to, I'm not going to end up asking where should we put these. I just want to understand a couple of things about this. So I believe from the report, it was 57 bikes are going to be, is the approximate total for?
52.
52, thank you. And then from the map, I think it's one map back, maybe, it's the kind of the regional map, or a couple pictures, kind of this one, sort of. I just wanted to understand. Can I offer you a coffee? That is nice of you. Commissioner Jared Abrams, good job. I'm asking questions and he's actually helping. Sorry. I just want to clarify this map because the goal here is substantively to get people off the island in a lot of ways because of the limitations on our tunnel. And I just wanted to understand from this map, it looks like there are essentially 3 docking stations in Jack London-ish. And if we don't know the answer to this question, it's perfectly fine. But I was just curious what that number is. We can discuss the good or bad about that later. But do we have a sense of, is that 3 stations in Jack London?
I think that's about right. My memory serves me correctly. I think there's one near the Capitol Corridor. There's one near the ferry terminal at the Embarcadero near Washington Street. And I think that there's a third one on 2nd and Webster, if folks are familiar with the area. Yeah.
We are. Any other clarifying questions? Commissioner Jared Abrams.
So I was just curious to understand if at an extremely high level what the costing is for the municipalities involved. Is it like per dock or per bike or?
Yeah, there are annual fees per bike, and they vary depending on usage. So the more ridership you get, the less you pay per year. I don't actually have it in front of me, but there's a table that shows kind of like ranges of ridership and then how your cost per bike goes down as ridership goes up. That's just the operating cost. There's the capital costs as well. Yeah.
Okay. I guess, yeah, thinking of it sort of as a concession overall. Okay.
Yeah, it's because it's partially subsidized, right? So the rider fees help to pay for the operation, and they get, the more returns they get, the less they have to ask cities to subsidize. Yeah.
Okay. And this might be jumping ahead a little bit, so if not, I was just curious to know if city staff know how the other deployments are subsidized. Like, is it all each city or county covering it themselves, or in like the Oakland or San Francisco situations?
I think I think MTC at the regional level is paying for quite a bit, and we're an expansion city, and so we have kind of a special thing where we pay together with Alameda CTC to expand. I don't think that MTC is 100% paying for the system elsewhere, but it's not every city has the same funding configuration. It varies. I don't know the details of the proportion of which agencies are paying across the system, but it does vary. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have some more questions, but just for clarification, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
That's it. Yeah.
Any other clarifying questions from commissioners? Seeing none, let's move to public comment on this agenda item. Do we have any in-person or online public comments?
So far, none online yet, but in person, we have Jim Strelo.
Good to see you, Jim.
Oh, surprise. Is there a minimum age? How will it be verified? Are there going to be helmets provided, or how do you ensure that there are helmets for those that need to have a helmet, for a bike? I'm glad to see that there is education in the program itself, because so many other programs, you hear me come here and say, we need more education, so glad to see that. Are there any police concerns about, the e-bikes? Because I hear a lot of things in the news. In past behavior of bike rental programs that I've seen bikes left off in the middle of a bridge or in the middle of the Posey Tube walkway. People are encouraged or they're supposed to dock these things at the dock stations, but they want to stop off at the stores. So are they going to park their bike, that rental bike, temporarily at a bike stall, or is it going to be in a parking space, stopping a vehicle from parking? It's the past behavior that that gets me concerned about. Of course, that there's a truck that goes around at night that has to service these bikes, and that now they'll have to maybe recharge the batteries of things, so that there's extra duties for those trucks that have to go around and service these rental bike type of things. But I, as a bicyclist, find that 15 miles per hour is very fast for the existing bike lanes, because I only go at about 11 miles an hour, and I see people just zooming right past me, and the bike lanes are not as wide as you'd want when things go zooming past you. Of course, there are the expert bicyclists anyway that go by at 20 miles an hour, but to see more of these vehicles going past, and I'm not sure that they'll be educated people, because there's no requirement for a license to have to ride these bikes, so that I don't know how well that they understand the bike laws and stuff. And of course, at 15 miles an hour, it is kind of too slow for riding in the city streets, so they're going to more or less ride more often in the bike lanes. So I'm concerned, for me, using the bike lanes to see more of them zooming past me. Thank you.
Mr. Strudel, at 11 miles an hour, you are faster than me on a bike, I can tell you right now. Any additional public comments?
Yes, on Zoom, we have Ars Hoti.
Honorable Commission, Arch Singh Hoti, General Manager of the Alameda TMA. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. I just wanted to bring to your attention that the Alameda TMA did submit a letter of support that made the 2 weeks ago's City Council agenda, as well as a letter from a loose coalition of hospitality businesses on the West End, Alameda Point in particular. And I guess my final thing I would say is the proposed expenditure for this program is really overshadowed by the amount of public good it will create. I sit on the other side of this table for my home city, the city of Berkeley, and I will say that through my commission work, I have seen bike share and other modes of ride share increase our intermodality, and that's sort of the seamless experience that I think transportation in the Bay Area should be going for. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time, yes.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional public comments?
There are no more public speakers.
Seeing no additional public comments, let's move to commissioner questions and comments. Commissioner Dare Abrams, you gave her a cough drop. You were very helpful. Please go first. I insist.
2 in a row. This is great. This is great. It is. You know, okay. Just to use the term seamlessness, the experience of, like, I think we either have probably heard secondhand or maybe even seen folks who, you know, they want to try the water shuttle or they want to take a ferry ride here. They get to Alameda and then they're like, oh, wait, oh, here I am. And having a regional docked bike share right there, it adds another option. This looks like the perfect mix to the complement of the regional ferry, the water shuttle, and really helpful for those local businesses. I did want to, if I may, Mr. Strelo, I had one of the same questions you had. I checked, and you have to be 18 to ride. If maybe staff could confirm you can just nod, Susie, if you want. Like,
yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
You have to be 18.
Because I was wondering from the perspective of if they had different ages for the e-bikes versus unpowered, and I guess it's 18 for all, which, for better or worse, also gets at the helmet concern, because state law is helmets are optional. Is that, okay, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, technically e-bikes are legal for use at 16, but the Bay Wheels system is limited at 18. So adults are legally not required to wear helmets. We, of course, encourage it. It's part of the education programs, but that's at the user's discretion.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a little, in the broad scheme of things, it's a little unfortunate that a 16-year-old can drive their parents' SUV, but they can't rent a Bay Wheels bike. But I understand that's beyond the purposes of this contract. So, and also just if Susie, if you could confirm, these are Class 1 bikes that are pedal assist, right? Like, to get up to that 15 miles per hour takes a choice, right?
Yeah, and a Class 1 e-bike technically can go to 20, and these are limited lower at 15. So it's a pretty moderate speed. The e-bikes are also single speed, like they don't have gears, which, I don't know, they don't accelerate quite like, they do accelerate well if you're in traffic and stuff, but it's not like super fast. It's not a Class 1 and it doesn't have a throttle. It's not even as fast as a Class 1 or a Class 3, and it doesn't have a throttle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so the only other comment I bet others will have thoughts on too. I liked how one of the email public commenters really just kind of brought up the question of, what should be the catchment area, and I think, the chair was getting at that too. Like, it seems like a lot of the success of the program is going to rely on hitting enough hot spots, and I don't know, 8 is going to be a challenge there. But, I don't know, I'm curious to hear what other people want to ask on that regard. And
Mr. Kim.
Yeah, I kind of had similar thoughts. I kind of agree with everything Commissioner Derry Abrams is saying. This is fantastic. I think the hardest part is going to be limiting it to 8 sites and figuring out those 8 sites. I would recommend in the contract or whatever we have with Lyft/Baby Wheels, like if provisions to move a site if needed. Right, like for example, if one of the 8 sites just gets a lot less ridership than we expect, can we move it to a different site? I think other agencies have done things like that. The other thing, I don't know if this is a question or a comment, but you kind of alluded to that the whole point of this program is to support the Access Project, right? And so the 3 ferry terminals have to be included. And what we're trying to do is connect people to those ferry terminals. But at the same time, the beauty of like kind of bike share is to use it to do your errands and different things on the island. So it's kind of like weighing those 2 things is going to be very difficult. And I don't know how that's going to work. Because like I'll say like if you weren't limited to having to serve the ferry terminals, like I don't even know if they would make the top 8 sites in just like a typical kind of process, right? So I am just kind of like curious how this is going to work. I love the fact that you've already thought about the potential for this to expand, not just to the east end, but probably more sites on the west end as well. Would be curious to know, like, is that after the 3-year period? Is that during the 3-year period? Just kind of curious, like, what, if this is super successful, what the timeline for expansion is, or...
Yeah, so the timeline on your comment on the locations and spacing, totally agree. It's definitely going to be a challenge because in order to have the system work super well for just all kinds of local trips, the density needs to be pretty high. And so the pilot is really focused on the first and last mile. So we're going to be really focused on kind of figuring out which employers and businesses and destinations have the highest likelihood of really just having commuters who need it to get on and off the island. It's a little bit different from a traditional bike share system establishment. But I think that because this is kind of a leverage moment in kind of getting this here in the first place, we don't have a specific timeline on a citywide expansion. There have been some discussions with MTC and the Alameda CTC about potentially providing like one more station near Fruitvale because it would sort of technically be within the radius of Oakland's system. There's some kind of maybe technicalities there that we can use to get one on our side without it being its own area. But beyond that, I think we would like to start thinking about what's our plan for funding relatively soon. But we're focused right now on just getting this pilot launched, and I don't think we necessarily need to wait until the end of the pilot to expand, but we do need enough time to get our ducks in the row on the funding and outreach. So don't have a specific timeline right now, but we do plan to begin discussing it and making a bit of a plan relatively soon. Yeah.
Could I ask a follow-up question to that? I thought I heard, or I understood, because this is essentially launching in a new area, we are paying a bit of a premium on this. Did I understand that comment?
The cost is not different from other places,
Okay.
but the fact that we're paying for it locally is different. Like when the MTC system launched, like a long time ago now, almost 10 years ago, that was kind of a regional thing, and MTC was leading it, and cities have not traditionally funded expansions
I see.
themselves. So that's a new thing. And so that would be a local and regional discussion to identify funding if we were to expand. The party line from the region has been that there's not funding right now, but there might be in the future. So I don't know if there's other kind of, if Lisa wants to weigh in on the funding aspect. But.
Yeah, I just to your good comments wanted to clarify that we are paying a matching fund, but we are looking at getting funding from Alameda CTC, which is different than MTC.
Yes.
For this program. Yeah.
Yeah, Alameda CTC funding I'm considering local in the sense that it's our county as opposed to the regional funds.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Additional, Commissioner Susan Thayer, sorry, Vice Chair Susan Thayer.
Thank you, Susie, for the presentation. This is, having a companion project to facilitate the movement when the construction is going on is an amazing idea. And there are so many benefits I see, and then people have talked about, and I agree with second the commissioners, both of them, in terms of how exciting this is and various uses that the residents will also see. I know it's kind of focused on businesses, helping businesses here. The one question I'm not still clear is that how is it really addressing the commute effectively, right? So can you explain on that? The people normally coming through the tube, what will they do? Because this is a companion project. I can see it's like, okay, there is a huge construction, and then it's going to be closed for a certain time, and also partially open for a certain time. So it's and there is a huge impact, and so at least this can alleviate some of the pressure. At the same time, this is a great asset, actually, temporarily, but still the main issue is the commuters. It's like especially coming to the businesses. So how is that being addressed? Because Fruitvale is far, you yourself said, and then there is a potential in between location you're trying, MTC, ACTC might help with, or we don't know. So can you explain on that?
Yeah, I think so. For the commuters, it would be for people for whom it works, right? So we heard a public commenter earlier who works somewhere along the waterfront area, kind of near that area, and he mentioned that he has colleagues who come from San Francisco on the ferry, but don't know how to, who would come on the ferry but don't know how to get to their office. And so we do plan to have a station somewhere around that Marina Village area, or Bohol Circle, so somebody could ride to Seaplane on the ferry and then take a bike share to the commercial areas if that's their commute. Or if somebody lives in Oakland within walking distance of the water shuttle and they work somewhere at Alameda Point, they could do a bike share from the water shuttle to Alameda Point. Or if they had a bike share membership, they could do bike share on both ends of the water shuttle trip. So yeah, that's kind of the idea, is that there would be a mixture of modes of access, as we say, to the ferry and water shuttle, but that it would provide that gap closure or the Webster Street District. If there's people who are working at a restaurant there and they can get to Jack London on the 12 bus, maybe in Oakland, but the bus service from Bohol Circle is a little bit too difficult for them, they could have a bike share, something like that. Yeah, Rochelle has a use case.
Well, yes, just kind of a bridge to our last item, which is so there are folks living in Alameda Landing who, the ferries leave from Seaplane Lagoon during the week to commute. And that, you might have noticed, was one of the goals, is like they want a shuttle to get from Alameda Landing to the Seaplane Lagoon Ferry Terminal. obviously, if they had a bike and they were comfortable, they could be biking now, but this would just be, it's not a shuttle, but it would be an option because there would be bikes there because of the water shuttle stop there in that area. So those people could take a bike and then park it so people could also be using it that way to leave Alameda, like they want to get to the ferry terminals. They either maybe they have a really large cargo bike that, costs $8,000 and they don't want to park it at the ferry terminal and they don't need it on the other end. So they just want a bike so they can just get to the ferry terminal. But it also is a way for, I think, residents to commute out as well, or they need to get to the water shuttle and then it's like a 20 or 15-minute walk. But if they could hop on a bike, then it would only be 5 minutes. So I think it does work both ways for commuting.
So it's basically going to address the trips that are made by transit, and mostly water-based, and also, of course, if you can get to the bus, you can get to Jack London and then connect. So I was also thinking about people who commute by cars. It's like, is there any option for them?
Well,
to
right
attract?
now, so those people in Alameda Landing could be driving right to the ferry terminal, and then they're taking up a parking space, and it's a car trip on the road, right? So people who are driving to the ferry terminal will be doing that. People who are coming from San Francisco to come to a job here might drive because they could take the ferry, but then it's a 30-minute walk, right, to their employers. So they're just not going to do that. They'd rather just drive. And parking is pretty cheap in Alameda. The reverse is not true, but it's pretty cheap here, so they might just do that. So I think that it's filling that like last mile or first mile gap, and it could be used in conjunction with transit that crosses the water and crosses the estuary. Yeah.
Okay. This is a great project.
Can I just add one more thing? Is just that I guess on the topic of what it does for the driver is similar to what Commissioner Dara Abrams mentioned earlier, is kind of if there's a few people or a handful of people each day who during the rush hour period, if they're going to downtown Oakland, if they can take a bike share from their residence to Woodstock and then the 72 bus to downtown Oakland instead of driving, these queues will be alleviated from those vehicles moving, and it will help the people who need to still drive. Yeah.
I'd like to add, we've been talking a lot about commuters, but I also see this program as supporting our businesses. The ferry only runs to Main Street on the weekends, so if we want somebody to be able to either take the SF Bay Ferry or the water shuttle and then get over to Alameda Point to have a beer, then, and hopefully just one as an adult,
1 an hour is
they
usually
would
fine.
have a way to get. Main Street's pretty isolated. The whole circle is not right near there, so the bike share would provide a way for people to have a pretty fun outing going to Alameda businesses.
Yeah, I realize there's no plan, from what I understand, to ever, or in the near future, to ever activate Seaplane on the weekends, but this just seems like an obvious, yet another push towards get people used to using Seaplane, especially in this perilous time when the tunnels are going to be hard. And that's an obvious future for Alameda to get rid of this weekend cut to Oakland, which does take actually a pretty long period of time. It makes it that much less convenient to get to San Francisco. It seems very obvious that that should be the future for Alameda and for Seaplane. And this is the kind of program that can actually support that even more because they can take that from a bike. So, sorry, parenthetical. Other comments, other questions? Commissioner Darius.
Lisa, Seaplane is at capacity for auto parking right now.
Not on weekends.
On certain days of the week, right?
On certain days, I think it has improved a bit based on my going out and counting. We're collecting some more formal data right now. We'll find out. But yes, we've been hearing a lot of reports of full parking lots there.
Okay. Actually, now that I say that, I remember I'm driving some kids on a field trip there tomorrow morning, so I'll find out. I just wanted to underscore also so I was about to when Rochelle was saying, and someone's e-bike, e-cargo bike, I was about to raise my hand and say that's me until she said $8,000, and mine is not worth that. But the thing that's come up, I've found, so I do have a cargo bike. When the bike valet at Fruitvale said, you're welcome to come one time, but this won't be an ongoing relationship. Those are his words, because they don't, they have size limitations, and they don't want to take bikes with the sidebars and kid seats in back. The same thing comes up with some folks at, if you want to ride your bike to Seaplane or Main Street and go to the ferry building, well, once you're in San Francisco, what are you going to do with your bike? And unfortunately, there isn't a bike valet at the ferry building might actually be relevant. But anyway, the reason I'm sharing these stories is I have found a lot of people make their decision for the entire day's journey based on the worst leg. And the advantage of the on-demand bike share is it could be used for one leg. You could maybe come back another way. You could ride somewhere. You could even go outbound from Seaplane and come back Main Street, and you haven't left your car at one of them. So anyway, I just wanted to share some of these stories because having more options will unlock some journeys that people might not otherwise take just because they have one more option in the mix. And so I'm glad to see this coming as an option. And if I could just echo the point of I think Commissioner Kim made of if the city can be ready to change, I don't know if the contract can support it, but to literally moving stations, but learn from what's working and optimize as best. So,
other questions or comments? I have a couple very brief ones. There was a public comment about bikes being left in inconvenient or annoying places, being left in the tunnel. My understanding is this program charges. I mean, again, you're charging, you're paying for per minute, and so essentially, if you are one of those people that leave a bike, you are being charged for it from now to the end of time or until they pick it up, right?
When I was doing council for a couple of weeks ago, I was doing some math on this. It's not infinite. It's 48 hours or something, and then they'll just hit you with a big fine instead.
Probably
it's
bought
a
the bike at
stolen
that point.
bike. But yeah, it goes up really fast. If you just look at the table with the per minute, it's yeah, it's so you need to be cautious about really long trips too, frankly. But the benefit of taking something and going crazy with it is low because it's so expensive.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's been said a couple different ways, but I think it's really important to emphasize the point. One of the things that is going to make this successful for commuters and honestly for the economy of the West End is actually the Oakland side of things. And that's why I kind of was harping on the point of how many bikes are near the ferry dock, be it the Main Street one, but also more specifically the water shuttle, because we can all sit here and look at this great future where there's 1 million people taking bikes, taking them in the water shuttle, and then they're out of bikes in Oakland. And that's actually a huge problem, and people will stop doing it. And so, there's the freebie, which I think still exists, and there's options. But I would hope, and I realize that it's a different group, and it's different money, and it's different infrastructure, it's just all these different things. But one of the things I guess I would recommend is for the city on our side to be in somewhat constant dialogue with the Oakland side and understand, are we just constantly titrating out every bike? I'm such a scientist. Every bike out there, is that gone, after the first hour of the morning commute away from Jack London? And if so, how do we get more of that kind of station or at least more repositioning towards Jack London? Because this will be one of those demand shocks that we always talk. Well, hopefully this will be one of those demand shocks where something really changes really quickly because people try this thing, and you have to have a good experience really early, and you have to keep that experience going. You kind of I actually think we do a pretty good job of responding on things, but this is one of those things where we should expect a problem and probably preemptively fix it, or at least within our control. I realize we don't control what Oakland or the MTC is going to do with this, but at least talk to them about it because we expect our goal is to send you a bunch of bike commuters. So I think that would be a good thing. You have a comment, Susie, tell me. Tell me I'm wrong, which would be great.
If I may, just Lyft Bay Wheels has open data on their usage and which stations are, where the bikes are going, and they track it themselves very closely for their rebalancing efforts. And what you're talking about does sometimes occur, like when they first launched Bike Share, there was certain neighborhood stations that would like drain in the morning, and then like BART would be slammed. But they've done, I think, a pretty good job over the years of like dialing in their systems around this. And so I actually think that despite our hopes, I think that our pilot probably would not overwhelm the Jack London stations, just because it's like in the grand scheme, like proportionally not like that much larger than the people who just like live in Jack London. It's a lot of apartment buildings, but it's a good point, and I'll ask when we get our agreements, our term sheet happening, what they can do if something like that is happening.
I'll tell them there's money to be made with more bikes and available bikes. Thank you, that's a great comment. Sorry, any other follow-up? I have one more quick comment. So I was a Lime bike aficionado back in the day. It was, if I remember correctly, a little controversial in Alameda. So we've talked about, like, there's things that went wrong with Lime bike, like now we have docking, we don't have throw it in someone's front yard. Great. What else do we learn from the Lime bike problems? Like, it's great to say, like, docking is going to fix the one thing people complained about, but it's also like, what else went wrong with Lime bike, and what else can we do better as a community and as a group here to make this work?
Yeah, I'll take a stab and also let Rochelle, who actually worked on that, then speak
And to be clear,
it,
Rochelle,
but-
I thought it was good and I liked it and we should have kept it. I actually very much mean that, by the way, but keep going.
Yeah, I guess just at a high level, the Lime bike pilot here, or program here in Alameda, happened at the time when bike share was quite new and dockless bike share was really new, and companies were going a little bit hog wild, and the city of Alameda actually had like way more structure around it than many other places where the bikes just got like dropped. I think that the dockless systems, even though this is not a dockless system, have really evolved in the sense that they've created all these new geofencing systems and whatnot, and cities have caught up and developed permit programs that set expectations. So I think like the learnings from Lime bike have kind of led us down the path of preferring to start this pilot again with a docked system. But if we do start walking down the path of interest in a dockless system again, we would want to be talking with people about what their expectations are for a system like that. And if we do start to talk about dockless scooters, we would need to incorporate all those learnings from Lime bike. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, having worked on that program, there was a lot of public discussion and comment and fury, but also at the high level, it was also extremely popular and extremely well used in Alameda. I would say the things that we've learned, and that it's not just kind of what we're doing, but like that the industry has matured, right? Is that the docking, a huge issue was these bikes left everywhere and blocking sidewalks and blocking curb ramps and falling over. And so obviously with the docked system, you don't have that. Another huge complaint that we got was very young kids were taking these and riding them. And kids that were not actually, they were too young to be riding them, and then they didn't have helmets on, and there was a lot of worry about that. And I think that I don't know exactly how the app works, but there's this age 18 limit, and I assume there's some sort of verification of that age. I assume that's gotten more sophisticated. Also, it's not free, and as Susie has said, it can get pricey really quickly, and and it's not super cheap, and so like there's maybe less incentive for younger people to use it and kind of abuse it. So. And then obviously along with younger people using it was this concern that they were supposed to wear helmets and they didn't have them and they weren't wearing them. So kind of keeping it at the, not having to, have anyone who's required to wear a helmet, not allowing them to be eligible to use this, I think addresses that issue as well.
Lime Bike is probably the reason Nextdoor became successful, if you think about it. But any additional comments or questions?
Quickly.
Please.
So what's the timeline we are looking at for the launch?
So right now we're targeting early 2027. We're hoping to have everything launched by about February.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we're going to go as fast as we can, to be honest. The Oakland Alameda Access Project is a bit of a moving target. They can change their schedules whenever they want. So, we are doing our best to just get this going as quickly as we can. So we're going to be having community outreach this summer and design happening kind of concurrently. And as long as we have, for the ones that we know, we will proceed with the design. And we want to be moving as quickly as we can.
The reason is, Encinal High School, some of the seniors, maybe meet the age criteria, so it may be popular among them too. So,
any additional comments? With that, I'm going to close out item 6B. Thank you for the good discussion. Let's move on to final commissioner communications on transportation-related topics. Any commissioners want their 3 minutes?
Can I?
You can. It's 3 minutes. Take it away. On transportation-related transportation-related story.
Yes.
Okay. Just check.
Thank you for the, for the transportation professionals here in the city for the bike lanes. Because, I have my nephew is visiting me from India, and he's just on the bike everywhere. And he's telling me new things, and then he kind of biked from Bay Farm to the Pinball Museum, and then going to Seaplane Lagoon, taking the ferry, and then it's like, it's amazing. It's all on the bike, He just can't wait to get on the bike every day. So thanks to all of you. So.
I have a comment about cars. Swerve. I just want to say that the new setup on Central with all the roundabouts is extraordinarily good for cars getting from the West End to Webster. If you have not done that yet, it is, sorry, I know there's some frowns in the audience, it's true. It's slow, but it's consistent. There's no traffic, for me, it sounds like. But I actually think the city did a great job with that project and has actually dramatically improved getting to the business district on Webster from residential parts of the West End. That is my own experience, but I actually recommend trying it because I actually like it quite a bit. So good job, in my opinion. Other comments?
Talking about the roundabouts, I think there is, I agree with our chair, but there is some lesson, some education needed. I think people are learning it. And I have seen people struggling and then really not yielding, and they didn't know what to do. So it has to be like, you keep moving slowly and then kind of let the other person come in. So it's kind of in the learning phase in some places, but I think we are getting there. So it's, yeah.
Great. With that, I am going to call for a vote to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kim. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Everyone have a great night. Thank you.